It's even stretching his scalp.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Right. Now this has come straight to council, so I haven't got a councillor to kind of call on to. So perhaps if you would like to introduce the paper.
Okay. So the Canterbury Accessibility Charter came about probably it was conceived around about 18 months ago, I guess, and it was an initiative that was conceived by the Earthquake Disability Leadership Group and Barrier Free Trust New Zealand. The vision for the Charter was to create a model for best practice and ensuring that business leaders and people responsible for the built environment in Canterbury took advantage of some of the opportunities that we have here in Canterbury as a result of the earthquakes leading to redevelopment. A lot of things have been happening in the city, and there's a lot of room for improvement. We're not doing too bad, but there are a lot of situations where there could be better collaboration between agencies responsible for the built environment and some consistency in the way that things are built. So the purpose of the Charter is around ensuring that places and spaces in Canterbury become universally accessible and enabling Cantabrians and visitors to live, work, learn and explore and play equally. Setting an expectation of best practice design and development which goes beyond minimum requirements of current legislation. So the Charter has 4 main guiding principles. They're centred around leadership, education, technical expertise and health and wellbeing. And Christchurch City Council has been seen as a leader in implementing the Charter within this organisation, and it's an organisation that other key stakeholders in Canterbury are looking to for guidance in the way that it carries out its duties or its various activities around providing facilities for the community and people with disabilities. The Charter is about access for everybody as well, so it's not necessarily just people with disabilities, it's a whole of life experience for people, so it's a better level of access for everybody. The council here, the staff set up an internal working group that worked across multiple units within the council. We looked at things that we do now and how we do those, and looked at opportunities for how we might improve what we currently do now. And so we've come up with a few initiatives for implementation. There's some things there like checks on our buildings from time to time to make sure that over time we may have built something correctly, but after a while somebody shifts some furniture around or put some boxes in the way or whatever it is, that we have continued good quality access. When buildings are built, our own facilities, that the appropriate checks are put in place to make sure that they are meeting at least minimum legislative requirements, and also that we look at some best practice for some of the things that we do. And some of those best practice things are around looking at the minimum legal requirements and then building on those. So it's things like the visibility of elements that where perhaps a ramp, for an example, might have a minimum requirements for its slope, but we actually make that ramp a little bit more gentle and provide better handrails. So there's some things like that we've looked at as a group, and we believe that a lot of what we need to do here is cost neutral. There are some additional costs involved in engaging a level of expertise and some of the built features that we would provide, but those would be managed within project budgets. The Barrier Free Trust and EDLG have an official signing of the Charter in our function room tomorrow afternoon, and there's around 6 key agencies in Christchurch that will be here to sign that, including Christchurch City Council. So today the staff here are looking for endorsement from the council. The executive team, this work is mainly operational, so the executive team have given their endorsement to go ahead and manage the operational aspects of the Charter, but staff are looking for council endorsement today.
Great. So Aaron, do you want to move it? you'd like to move it? Phil? Yep.
Just very good report, and in terms of the charter too. I'm really pleased. I'm sure Aaron will endorse it too. But I just want to, and there's good work being done around training for the staff, and there's a whole plan for that. I would expect too that because leadership is part of this, that as councillors we could be included somehow in that training.
Yep. So the objective was to provide a base level of training for everybody at the council, including councillors. We've looked at some things that happen over time as well, and we think that sometimes there's maybe a little bit of a downfall. It's as a result of a lack of understanding. So I think when you get that base level of understanding, it becomes common sense or second nature, and it helps lead a culture of thinking about access for people. So yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And yesterday the council's multi-unit staff group met and agreed to work closely with the council's disability advisory group, which would include staff training and councillor training, because that's your practical, yes, it's met all the requirements and it's even met best practice, but still our members in Blind Foundation are saying this, and we always want to keep that aspect alive as well. So that's that lived experience voice, so we'll make sure that that is part of this.
Any other? Well, I'll put it open to debate now. Aaron?
Yeah, I'll speak to it first. Probably want to call me Philip at the end of it. So we will hopefully support this today, then, sadly sign it tomorrow. And I say sadly because what a sad country we live in, that we've got to this point that we have to have an accessibility charter, that we have to reflect on everything we build to ask, is it good enough for people with different disabilities? Is it accessible? And the reason why I say that is that almost every company and organisation in this country does not employ enough disabled people. And that is the entire problem here. We wouldn't have to re-look at all the designs if the people working in the architectural firms, in the joinery companies, and the concrete companies had their fair share of disabled people working there, and we looked at them and treated them as assets. And then we would have a completely different lens over the way we make and do everything. I've just come from a disability committee meeting round at Health Board, and it was brought up there, and once again outpatients is about to open, but it will be inaccessible because of the roadworks all around the outside for the next year and a half. That's because groups like Otakaro and Sarah and everyone else don't employ disabled people, who would have said early on in the process, if you do that roadworks, then this building that's going to have a lot of disabled people using it won't be accessible. And we as an organisation are guilty of it. Maybe in private businesses some of us own and have been guilty of it, and until that attitude changes, we will need charters like this to drag us over the line and make our country and our city accessible. And for me, Christchurch should be the most accessible city in the world, because so much of it's being rebuilt, but we should be the #1 attraction to live in for anyone with a disability, because our weather's pretty darn good. Rains on average 28 days a year, and it's flat. So what a great place to live. So if we start to embrace this part of society, which has been completely undervalued, in fact, just using the term disabled or disability starts with a negative. And if you ask or know people with any form of disability, if you know them well, you'll know that they have nature has given them a counter to that, which means they have a real asset that we often don't see, because we see the other side of them first. And that's what we need to flip on its head as a society, and then we will not need these charters and stuff in the future to get us to a point that gives us an accessible city. So until that day, we will need this tomorrow, and I do hope everyone supports it. And it is a good start, but it's a really sad indictment of our society that we're even at this point in 2017.
Great. Phil?
I certainly agree with Aaron. In fact, though, the charter is just so necessary, and so that in fact we do make our city accessible for especially, well, for the people with a wide range of disabilities, really. And that's the thing that, especially with the reconstruction, as Aaron alluded to, it is just so challenging. And even in building our transport infrastructure, we've certainly found, for example, their cycleways, they offer big impediments really for people who have disabilities. So there's a lot of challenges in terms of how we actually get all this work done. So I think us, as Aaron said too, us as a council becoming leaders in that area, I really applaud that. Because for a long time, people with disabilities kind of were on the back burner, and you just have to look at, for example, the car parking, even around some of our own council facilities, and the access for people, say, who are in a chair. So we've got a long way to go, but I think this is great, and I think the concept of best practice will work really well, rather than sort of having a hard bottom line requirement, which in some areas we may not achieve. So I very much thank the staff for some great work and teamwork being done on this, and glad we're doing this today.
Andrew?
Thank you. I also totally support this. And it's a very timely conversation. Of course, we're at a unique time in the history of Christchurch with the amount of rebuilding and regeneration that we're doing at the moment. If there was a time that we were going to talk about how we rebuild and regenerate to enable and in fact ensure access for all at all times, this is the time that we should be having the conversation. So I think it's a great piece of work. It's also a very timely piece of work. I'm encouraged by the way that it's collaborative, and I'm also encouraged by the commentary around going beyond the minimum standards and really as a council setting the bar high and leading by example, but also as a city we've got the ability to become recognised as that place that is fully accessible and to be leading by example to the rest of the country and possibly beyond that as well. So I'm very supportive of this, and thanks to staff for all the work that's gone into it.
Glenn and then Jamie.
Thank you. Just a quick comment. Another good reason to get control of our district plan back and get those principles put back into the plan over life, Mark.
Jamie?
Yeah, just really quickly on this, I just want to say that although it's a disability or accessibility charter, you know, this really is, don't think of it as just for disabled people, this is for absolutely everyone. Yeah. And I think that that's what's so critical, is that if it works for disabled people, it works for absolutely everyone, whether it's young people, whether it's pregnant mums, whether it's old people living in an ageing population. From a business perspective, why would you choose to alienate a section of customers? You know, so it works on every level. So commend staff and agree with everything that's been said.
Anyone else? No? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.